Thank you very much. So we are live streaming this meeting to the NWSOFA.org. That is our website, our YouTube channel. And I just completed getting that done here, and we should be able to see the NWOFA screen now.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Make that full screen.
Am I full screen?
No.
No.
Well, I think that's about all we're going to get because right now I cannot get it to full screen because too many people are entering. I can't see my screen.
It's big enough. We can see
All
it.
right. So welcome everybody to NWSOFA, which stands for Northwest Suburbs Organizing for Action. We're an indivisible chapter, one of many. We're in the northwest suburbs of Chicago in the land beyond O'Hare. We are one of thousands of chapters. I think the last number I heard was 2,500 across the country. Those little dark spots, those are us. Even in the Montana and North Dakota, you see a couple of spots out there. We are growing by 5 a day. Now, our job, why we exist, is to organize and educate our members, both our local members and those that join us by Zoom nationally. We hope that they can, by these presentations, they'll understand the facts, they'll sharpen their arguments, your arguments, and be able to communicate to your audience, your local indivisible group, your local Move On 5051 group, or your local Democratic group. That is our whole goal. We are organized on a twin snowflake principle. On the left side in the orange, you see our communications group. And on the right side, you'll see in the turquoise, all of our issue teams. We have 10 standard issue teams. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. We have a group of 28 all volunteer members that work both on the communication side and on the issue team side. And tonight we've got two of our best on. A little bit about what we do. We have conversations. We hold Zoom meetings so that people can talk to one another. Every morning, Monday through Friday, we do the coffee and conversation, and that's at 9 Central. It says 10, but it's on 9 Central. And we have our unhappy happy hour at 5 every Friday at 5 Central. These are all Central. And then we have Sorting Soup, which is a new program that some of our national members came up with, and we call it the Decompression Hour. They take key issues from the coffee and conversation, and they develop action plans 2 times a week. That's on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock. And then you can see on the sides, we're out in Palatine with doing a Palatine Fest out there. We do catering, everything that we can do to get people talking. We have monthly team presentations. Our primary ones are the gun violence prevention, our stand with women, our fiscal and economic, our climate change, and our 2 restore our democracy groups, one that's devoted to elections and gerrymandering, etc., and the other one's which is devoted to the issue of the day. So really, really cool. Our national Zooms, we have our legislative review, we have our vision forward, our sorting soup, our share our stories, and our working hands how-to sessions that go on. And we have partners. These are just a few of our partners, and we promote and we ask people to join their programs, all the way from social storming to rallies to Indivisible Illinois, which twice a month has programs for us. You know, we constantly are promoting and developing ways to bring more information to you. Tonight, we've got our Restore Our Democracy team. We have Ed Spire and Jim McGrath. Principally, Ed will doing the presentation tonight. And this is going to be on Deportation Nation, unpacking Trump's immigration policies and exploring a humane future. And with that, I'm going to introduce Ed. But I got two things less to say. When I said that we are sharing this to a YouTube live, these are 8 of our most recent YouTube live. You'll be able to go up to our website and click on those and see those. And for tonight, we're asking you to do a Q&A. So let Ed do his presentation, and then we ask you in chat to ask your questions, but start your questions out with an all caps question so that we can locate those questions. And then at the end of the presentation, one of our co-hosts will ask Ed to answer those questions. With that, Ed, it is back to you.
Thank you, Bill. And thank you for all the work you do getting all this stuff organized. Let me share my slides and we'll get started with this discussion here. All right, you should be seeing my slides now. Bill, you can see them, yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, how do I get rid of that? Get rid of that. Click here, and there you go. So we're going to put this stuff in historic context, how things have been working in the past, how they've changed recently, Trump's first administration, what happened under the Biden administration, and what's happening now. We'll talk about some myths and misconceptions, and a lot of these myths and misconceptions are reasons some people thought this was a good idea. We'll talk about what's really going on right now, and how the stated policies that the administration has brought forth are differing from the practice of what they're actually doing. We'll talk about the social impacts, the economic impacts. We'll talk about how we could bring forward better policies and proposals to reform, and we'll look at a few real live cases, not just statistics. And I always end with a call to action, because that's why we're all here, to make a difference. Usually it's one slide, but there's so much to do, it's going to be more than one slide. So, there's a lot of material here. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly so we can get through it, but you're all going to get all these slides. You'll have a recording of the presentation, and you can look through the slides. There are some links in the slides you can click on, and you can review this material in more depth later. You're always welcome to email me and ask me questions. My email is right there. It's an easy one, ed.spire@gmail.com. And we'll handle some discussion and questions today at the end of this. So, we have about 11 million undocumented immigrants, and they've been building up over decades. And it's really been about 11 million since about 2010. Most of this population has lived here for more than 10 years. Originally, a lot of them were from Mexico, but more and more are coming from Central America and other regions. And a lot of that has to do, frankly, at the bottom level with climate change. As the more southern areas become harder and harder to live in, there gets to be political problems related to that, and people feel forced to leave their countries. Nobody wants to leave their country, but they feel forced to leave their countries. And most of the people, most of the undocumented people here are living in mixed status households with legal residents or U.S. citizens. They're generally not by themselves. And this large number of undocumented immigrants has had great benefits to our country, especially mostly in terms of adding to our workforce, especially in certain areas like agriculture, construction, service industries. These people have paid billions in federal, state, and local taxes. They're working not under the cover, they're working above board and paying taxes, paying Social Security, paying Medicare. And in fact, they're generally ineligible to claim benefits under Social Security or Medicare. Undocumented households paid nearly 90 billion federal taxes in 2023. And in fact, Social Security and Medicare are in better economic shape than we thought they were going to be because this money's coming in and we know that we don't have to pay it out again to these particular people. Um, so, and it's an important part of the workforce. Another thing to point out is that since the pandemic, all the growth in our workforce has been foreign-born labor, all of it. There are still thousands of baby boomers retiring every day. We can't replace those workers with our internal birth rate. Bringing in immigrants, whether they're documented or not, we have to do that to keep our economy moving. Our immigrants do support economic growth, and they keep essential programs like Social Security more solvent. And the labor they fill provides crucial gaps in sectors facing shortages. There's been a lot of positive impacts. Now, there's some negative impacts too. I mean, there's been fiscal strain. The initial net fiscal burden, particularly at the state and local level where undocumented people show up and they may need some health care, they need some education, they need other services. There is an impact there. We have to pony up some money to help these people when they show up. But overall, the long-term economic contribution remains positive, or at least neutral. This country's always been built by immigrants, and it just makes sense that bringing people in when we need more workers is something that in the long run helps our country. And there are social tensions too. There's the presence of undocumented immigrants has sparked policy debates, fueled social tensions, and opponents are always arguing for stricter enforcement. They're always pointing to perceived competition for jobs and public resources. But when you look at it carefully, we generally find there's very modest impact on wages from native-born workers. There's very little evidence of increased crime, no matter what you hear in some kind of news organizations. Well, there's been a bunch of changes. It's been going on for decades, frankly. The first Trump administration tried to make some big changes. They heavily increased the investment in border security. They implemented deterrent policies that were meant to deter people from coming, such as taking kids away from their parents when they show up at the border, things that I know a lot of us find totally repugnant. Well, the Biden administration reversed a lot of that stuff. They halted border work construction. They changed the asylum eligibility rules to make it easier to apply for asylum. They even started an app that people could use to get in line to sign up for asylum requests. They ended certain travel bans, and they expanded legal pathways, humanitarian parole programs, and they added that app I just mentioned, and that caused a lot more people coming to the border. A lot more people thought that it'd be easier to get in, and we had a tremendous number of people coming to the border feeling like it was a more open border. Well, and in fact, a lot of us think that Biden went a little too far there, and maybe he should have tightened up. By late 2024, he was tightening up. Well, it's a little bit late, but he did tighten up those measures some. But it's really not true to say we have an open border or that it's uncontrolled. It's very complex. Our policies shift over time in response to surges, legal challenges, public concern. There are periods of looser controls followed by periods of more stringent control. And we just saw that. There was some stringent control under Trump 1. There was a looser control at the start of the Biden era. He was starting to tighten up at the end of the Biden era. And sometimes it was less restrictive. But both perception and reality shifted as he tightened up policies. And there was a significant reduction in border crossings towards the end of his term. But Trump's second term has really gone overboard. Once again, tightening border security significantly, ending policies that made asylum claims easier. He got rid of that app that people could use to sign up for an asylum slot. Tightened the policies to greatly limit the ability to request asylum. and he's put a lot of military resources into the border. He's found a way to claim that at the first few miles, I think it's maybe 20 miles from the border, is a military zone, and our military, which usually only deals with foreign problems, can be deployed anywhere along our border at this point. So he's really clamped down. He's clamped down on people that are here, even the ones that came in legally. They waited in line. They got an asylum slot. They were vetted. They were released into the interior of the country, given work permits so they could work and earn a living and care for their family. And he's finding those people that we all thought were okay. He's finding them and kicking them out. Now he says he's prioritizing deporting violent criminals, but actually they're getting rid of anybody they can lay their hands on. They're even deporting visa holders, people like students who want to speak about, maybe they want to talk about what's happening in Gaza. If they say something that Trump doesn't want to hear, they decide they're a threat to national security and throw them out of the country, try and throw them out of the country. So that's what's going on right now in summary. We'll get into more detail, but let's review some of these myths, some of these things that are said that just aren't true. Most immigrants are here illegally. Well, no. I mean, most immigrants have some kind of legal status. Either they're naturalized citizens, they're permanent residents, they're holders of visas, or they're people that have asked for asylum and have been granted asylum claims. Fewer than a quarter of our foreign-born residents are totally undocumented. You see, seeking asylum is a legal right. It's protected under our law, under international law. So when somebody says, all these people are illegal, well, a lot of them are technically legal, especially the ones that have requested asylum, have been granted a review of their asylum case, and have been allowed to come into the country and work while their asylum claim is being processed. And frankly, the fact that we don't fund the asylum courts properly means that if somebody gets their asylum claim approved and comes into the country, it could take a couple of years before their case is actually heard. And so during those couple of years, they're working, they're paying taxes, they're helping their family. The other thing that is true is that most asylum claims are denied. After a couple of years, they get into court and they say, no, we don't believe you really qualify. And then they kick them out again. So it's good that we have a bunch of extra workers, but personally, I think we got to change the criteria so that we keep them instead of kicking them out after they finally get into court. Now, there's another myth says that these people are likely to commit crimes, and that's just nonsense. Yes, there are a few bad people who commit crimes, just like there are in our own population. But in fact, the people who commit crimes in the immigrant population are fewer than on our own population. These people, most of them, they come here to find a better life. They come here to find a safe place to raise their family, to earn some money. They keep their heads down. They certainly don't risk going to jail for an illegal vote. And the few of them that commit crimes are really a smaller percentage of that population than of our own population. Now, the other myth is that if we just control the border better, we can halt all this, which is nonsense. People find ways to get in. Many of them actually arrive legally under a visa, but then they overstay their visa. More border enforcement is not going to halt that kind of thing. Somebody thinks that we're just letting people in without screening them, which is really wrong. People coming in here asking for asylum, they undergo very strict vetting, background checks, fingerprinting, interviews. Sometimes it takes years of approval before we let them in. Does it lead to more drug trafficking? No. Most immigrants who come from the South are not smuggling drums. They're coming here, as I said, to find a better way of life, to find a safe place for their family. Drugs come in, all right, but they don't necessarily come in with immigrants. They come in truckloads that they're smuggled in over the border. So cracking down on immigration is not going to lower the amount of drugs coming in. The drugs are still coming in, um, um, concealed in truckloads of goods. Somebody thinks they don't want to learn English. Well, most of them do attempt to learn English, mostly because they want to get a job. And in many cases, if you understand English, it's easier to find a job. Um, a lot of problems there is that there's a lot of demand, so it's very hard to get into a class to learn language. It's not a problem of lack of motivation; it's more a problem of lack of resources. Um, and somebody says that these asylum seekers aren't really seeking asylum; they're just looking for jobs. Well, you know what? They have to provide credible fear of persecution, and the way things are happening south of the border, especially in Central America and South America, there's plenty going on down there for these people to be afraid of, especially if they have kids, especially if they have kids approaching the teenage years, where if they don't get them out of there, they're going to end up in drug gangs. Um, these people really, really are coming from dangerous areas that they really do fear violence, repression. They're not simply here for economic hardship. I'm sure there are some, but most of the ones that are coming here and they're risking a lot to leave their country and travel through dangerous situations to get their family someplace safe. They really are wanting to live in a country ruled by law instead of by gangs, where they can raise a family and pursue a job and take care of their people safely. And it's not just they need a job, they need a place where they can raise a family in safety. And that's true. That's really true. Somebody thinks they overwhelm social services, they don't pay any taxes. Oh, come on, they pay tons of taxes. They pay federal, state, and local taxes. They pay sales tax. They pay into programs they're never going to get benefits from. And yeah, they can sometimes overload social services. We agree that there's some financial stress at the outset, but I think that we just need to fund that stuff because we need these people. Um, they think that stopping immigration will end security threats. Oh, there's really zero evidence of that. Um, there's no evidence that terrorism in the U.S. is caused by immigrants. It's extremely rare. Yeah, there were some people who snuck in and learned to fly some planes and shot down a couple of buildings. Yes, those were immigrants. But the huge majority of immigrants have nothing like that going on. So, and if somebody wants to sneak into this country to cause terrorism, they'll find a way to do it. Another one, building a wall will stop unauthorized immigration. We really talked about that already. This kind of in here twice. Um, so, the reality is that immigrants don't increase crime, not significantly. That's been studied carefully. Um, the areas that have a lot of undocumented immigrants have lower crime rates and incarcerations than the areas that are mostly U.S. born citizens. Our population, the percentage of immigrants in the U.S. population doubled from 1980 to 2022. And over that time period, our crime rate fell by 60%. Violent and property crime rates have dropped significantly during this time. So thinking there's some kind of crime wave caused by immigrants is just nonsense. It's just something people say because they want to talk you into supporting their views. And if you look really closely, like in Texas, where crime by legal status is tracked, they show that undocumented immigrants have a lower offending rate, less than half the rate of U.S. born citizens, 1/4 of the rate for property crimes. So the reality is of crime and jobs and public benefits boost job growth and workforce. Having more immigrants gives us a lot more people to work. Recent surges in immigration have increased our payroll by 70,000 to 100,000 jobs per month over the last 3 years. And that compensates for pandemic era workers who retired early and all the baby boomers who got retiring. Honestly, we really need these workers, and we're going to be in a lot of trouble if we don't continue to bring them in. and they fill critical roles in sectors like agriculture, construction, food processing, service areas where there are always we always need more people in these areas. And you know, somebody will say they're taking jobs away from me. Well, come on, are you out there picking vegetables? Are you out there working as a carpenter building homes? How about cleaning motel rooms? Are you out there cleaning motel rooms? No. You see, these people are taking jobs that most of our people don't want to do. Economists really broadly agree there's no sizable negative impact on wages because they're taking jobs that nobody else wants to do. And you know, some industries, they're really essential. They're like 20% of the workforce in agriculture or construction. And in some companies, it's even higher than that. I was hearing a story the other day about a meat processing company that lost over half of their employees, even though all of them had been vetted through the E-Verify system. They still lost half their employees due to immigration raids and can't run their business the way they used to anymore. Just can't. So there are a lot of restrictions on benefits access. These undocumented people generally not eligible for most public benefits. They don't get food stamps. They aren't on Medicaid. There might be some emergency care they get when we want to keep them from dying. You know, legal immigrants, even legal immigrants, face a 5-year waiting period before they qualify for these kinds of programs. And even then, their participation rate is lower than that for U.S.-born citizens. It's due to eligibility limitations, application barriers, and the public charge rules chilling effect that they don't want to be seen like they're taking advantage of a system that they're just happy to be here in the first place. Now, some states and local programs do offer limited assistance beyond what's available, but those are the exceptions, not the rule. And some of those are pulling back. I mean, in California, and I believe here in Illinois, you're going to see less money spent on immigrants than before, simply because we're coming under financial pressure and we have to do that. We have to take care of our own citizens first. So there's been really dramatic drop in border crossings. It's the lowest monthly totals in history. Only 6,000 apprehensions recently in a month. Some days seeing fewer than 150 apprehensions a day. That's a really sharp decline. It's just a fraction of previous figures. And there were no releases of immigrants at the border. None. Nobody was granted asylum and allowed into the country. None. Zero. Compared to nearly 28,000 paroles releases a year ago. That's an unprecedented clampdown on our entry points. We have very aggressive enforcement and major policy shifts. Right now, enforcement operations are at such a high level they haven't been seen in decades. Federal authorities under the Trump administration have launched expansive initiatives, not only at the border, but people living far from the border, with arrests being made in major cities. State and local partnerships have expanded, especially in the red states. Hundreds of agreements allowing joint operations between federal immigration agencies and local law enforcement. And arrests and removals in areas far from the border are happening all the time now. Almost all asylum seekers arriving at the border are now turned away. Nobody is being allowed to apply for asylum, which kind of is in violation of law. Kind of. The app they could use to sign up while waiting in Mexico is discontinued, and people who came in through the app are being kicked out. And so these new regulations all but eliminated access to asylum for people who cross without prior authorization. And many are just kicked out immediately unless they meet really, really high standards for protection. The detention, and this means we've been putting more and more people into detention. Our capacity has increased dramatically. We've funded a lot of beds for immigrants. Federal memos now require that most people in proceedings to remain in custody for the duration of their cases, which can take months or years. They're not letting them into the country, giving them work permits anymore. They're just throwing them in concentration camps. and they've received tens of billions of funding, most of it debt funding, not paid for by taxes, which is fueling expansive deportation campaigns, supporting mass arrests, detention of anyone lacking legal status, including long-term residents who've been here for a long time. There's a lot of humanitarian and social concerns. Tens of thousands of migrants, especially asylum seekers, they're in limbo on the Mexican side of the border. They have no hope of getting in. They have no idea what they're going to do. It's just a mess. It's a total mess, and refugee admissions are just halted. A complete ban on refugee resettlement remains in effect, stranding thousands who had already been approved for refugee status and have now been turned away. For example, in June of 2024, we saw over 180,000 people at the border. This June, we saw 6,000. I mean, it's slowed to a trickle. In June of 2024, 27,000 people were accepted as asylum claimants, given work permits, and let into the country so they could help run our businesses. June of 2025, zero, not one. So border crossings are at the lowest point forever. Immigration enforcement is far-reaching. Access to asylum programs is done, and humanitarian refugees are completely closed. This is the most secure, most restrictive border in modern history. They're all the levels are extremely low. Closing humanitarian pathways, access to asylum, that's a violation of not only international treaty obligations, but U.S. law as well. We have laws on the books that say that we have to honor asylum requests, and the administration is just ignoring that. We're ignoring both the letter and the spirit of the refugee conventions, and there's all kinds of legal challenges to these kinds of processes. So, let's talk about the stated policies versus what they're doing. The stated policy is that they want to get rid of as many as 1 million people a year, which far exceeds any previous annual totals. They want to enlist a broad range of federal agencies, from the IRS to DEA to FBI. They want to get all these people involved in immigration enforcement, going way beyond just the traditional border and immigration agencies. And they're talking about zero tolerance in the interior. They want ICE to prioritize, they say they want ICE to prioritize the removal of undocumented immigrants, not just those with criminal convictions, and to make arrests in locations previously considered sensitive, such as schools, courthouses, hospitals, places of worship. They are looking for expedited removal. They want to compel rapid deportation without any kind of hearing before an immigration judge. They want these high quotas, 1,200, 1,500 a day, and they want to get their detention capacity up from 50,000 to over 100,000 beds. The Homeland Security is requesting tremendous funding, which has been granted. They're trying to clamp down on policies on sanctuary cities. I know they filed suit against Chicago. A judge just recently threw those suits out, but the way it was said was it's quite possible they'll be able to reestablish those suits anyway. And they're giving incentives to people to leave by themselves, so that they threaten people and they say, we're coming to get you. If you want to voluntarily leave, we can help you. We can give you some money. But if you don't leave voluntarily, we're going to fine you. So they're really putting the pressure on people here. Now, those practices, those policies turned into some really serious results. These sweeping raids of arrests. They're conducting frequent raids in sanctuary cities, in workplaces, in homes, in public spaces. The raids extended to sensitive locations, used to be off limits. Arrests and detentions of both targeted individuals and collateral bystanders, including U.S. citizens in some of these cases, are getting swept up. Now, a lot of cases, the U.S. citizens are let go 3 or 4 days later, but still they're in jail for no reason for a few days. There's been a surge in detention and deportation. Interior enforcement has doubled. Immigration detention has increased by 25% already, and that's just getting started. Um, and they're using non-traditional facilities. They're using military bases such as Guantanamo Bay. They're collaborating with state governments, like the thing they did in Central Florida, to create more space for detainees. Um, they're taking a lot of shortcuts in their legal process, their due process. There's no judicial review. They're employing the Alien Energy Act to accelerate the procedures to deport individuals before they can make legal claims. And despite high-profile campaigns, record-breaking ICE arrests, the pace and scale of removal has lagged behind their stated goals. They've claimed to remove 140 to 200,000 people in the mid-2025. That's pretty far short of the million annual target they want to make, but they're still getting a lot done. And there's been very widespread social and economic impacts. These massive enforcement actions have disrupted local economies, agricultural and construction economies. People can't harvest their crops. They can't finish their construction jobs on time. And there's a really marked increase in fear of family separation. There's a lot of people who just won't go to work anymore. They haven't been nabbed, they haven't been taken off the streets, but they won't leave their house either. So a lot of businesses are suffering actual loss of employees, not only because they've been nabbed, but also because they're just afraid to come to work anymore. Within weeks of Trump's inauguration, ICE tripled the number of daily arrests. And then it wasn't enough. It died down some. Trump was saying, maybe we should be a little more gentle on the people working in agriculture. And then Stephen Miller came along and said no to that. Said, no, we have to get these people out. We have to have 3,000 arrests a day. And you can see over on the right side of the slides, there was a meeting with Stephen Miller where he just said, basically, no, we're not going to have any leniency towards anybody. And it just went up more than doubled again after that meeting. 42% raise after his meeting. Most of these people have no criminal record whatsoever. I mean, they talk about how dangerous immigrants are and how they're going to prioritize getting criminal aliens out. But then they turn around and say, well, anybody that crossed the border illegally is breaking the law. And so they're taking out people that have no criminal record whatsoever. The vast majority of people they're picking them up with armed vehicles, military-style gear. They descend on public parks. They grab anybody they can find. Most of these people have no criminal record whatsoever. And they don't really have space for all of them. Their previous high in 2018 is shown by that red line. We're way over that now. The average number of people held in ICE jumped from 40,000 before Trump's inauguration to about 55,000 now. But they only had funding for 41,000 beds, so they're over allocated right now, and they're working to build more, but the conditions are inhumane. There was a visit to one of the high desert places in June, and Representative Judy Chu wrote that the detainees were being held in filthy, inhumane conditions. They hadn't been provided a change in underwear for 10 days. Across the U.S. immigration detention have reported overcrowding conditions, moldy and inadequate food. They're just bringing them in faster than they can deal with them in a humane manner. There's detentions with children and parents at family detention centers in Texas. Even short periods under these terrible conditions have major health consequences for young people. Families have had lack of fresh drinkable water, lack of child-friendly food. The families that represents a 9-month-old baby who lost more than 8 pounds while in detention. It's just terrible. Now, they allocated $45 billion to expand the detention systems, and that will roughly double their capacity to detain people over the next few years. but that's going to take a while for that stuff to become effective. You can throw something, you can slap something together very quickly, like they did in Florida. That doesn't mean it's very good. The one in Florida, they're living in tents that don't even protect them from rain properly. Um, so they're changing policies to make it easier to detain more people for longer periods of time. The acting director declared that immigrants fighting their deportation in court will no longer be eligible for bond hearings, meaning that millions, literally millions, will have to remain in detention for months or years. One of the things I've recently been thinking about is what's going to happen in 4 years? We're going to have millions of people in these concentration camps. When we finally get control of the government, we're going to have to do something about them. It's going to be the biggest mess we've ever had to clean up, ever. Now deportations have risen, but not as much as detentions. Right now, they've increased deportations, but it's not much higher than it was during the Obama period. In fact, during the Obama period, I think we were deporting more people than Trump is. Trump is just doing it in a much meaner, in a much angrier manner. During Biden, most of the expulsions occurred right at the border. When people were coming in, they were turned back right away. So that's not happening because he's closed the border. But most of these deportations now are coming from the middle of the country. But they haven't kept up with the rate of the deportations haven't kept up with the rate of detentions. That's why the number of detentions is building up so much. So we're now focusing primarily on immigrants within the U.S., many who've been here for country, many have a legitimate claim to fight deportation, which is why it's harder to deport people as fast as they can pick them up and arrest them. The number of people in deportations is fluctuating, but right now they're still vying to keep their promise of mass deportations, but they're not there yet. So the number of people in detention is rising a lot. They've displayed a number of policy changes. They arrest people at immigration courts. This is a nifty trick. People come in for their monthly review of their asylum case, and the administrative judge just says, your asylum has now been denied. We're closing your case. You are no longer eligible for asylum. And the ICE agents are waiting outside the door. So as soon as they leave the courtroom, no longer having an asylum case pending, the ICE agents nab them and put them in alligator Alcatraz. And there's been lawsuits up the wazoo about this kind of thing. They've also terminated temporary humanitarian relief for all the people that have come in from Honduras, El Salvador, and Venezuela. And that's at least 22,000 people have been deported since January under that program. Here's an example. A Honduran mother brought her 2 children to immigration court on May 29th, expecting to make her case for asylum. But the judge quickly dismissed their case, and ICE agents waiting outside the door stepped in and took them all, the mother and the 2 children. The 6-year-old boy has been diagnosed with leukemia. He missed a medical appointment. According to lawsuits filed, the Immigrants' Rights Texas says that he's not getting medical care in detention. And that's a horror. A family and their children have felt that they're in need of medical care and they're not getting it. Arresting immigrants as they step out of a courtroom is just totally inhumane. The family came to the U.S. seeking safety. Inhumane policies are preventing them from seeking even medical care for their children. It's hard to imagine that this country is doing this to people. They were staying with relatives in Los Angeles. They had legal permission to come into the country. They waited in line and they used the app. They waited in Mexico. They got an appointment. They came in. They were granted parole status. The U.S. government paroled them into the country. The U.S. government says, you're not a risk. You can come on in. You can get a job. You can earn some money and take care of your family. You're not a flight risk. The family confirmed they're not a flight risk because they kept showing up to their immigration court to do exactly what they followed all the rules. And yet they were arrested with no due process, with no new notice, and without any opportunity to explain their circumstances or arrange for care for their children. Their children are citizens. Their children were born here. They could have, if they'd given some notice, they could have put the kids with a relative instead of having the kids end up in a detention center with the mother. One thing you find now is that they're using border agents far from the border. They've decided that, well, they've decided that you can use a border agent within 100 miles of a border, but they've also decided that any shoreline is a border. So all those yellow areas you see are 100 miles from a border, and Border Patrol has been working in all those areas. Those areas contain about 2/3 of our population. So now you have border agents working throughout the country, not just at our southwest border, which is what people kind of think the border agent is supposed to do. So there's family separation and child trauma, destruction of mixed status families, mental health effects on children. I got to move along here. We've been spending a lot of time. We still have slides to go through. Erosion of community trust, fear in the immigrant communities, people who won't even come out to go to work, distrust of institutions, declining health and well-being. These people who get separated and thrown in detention centers, their health suffers. And a lot of them won't even go out to try and get services because they're afraid. There's economic and social barriers, less income, increase in poverty. We have a reduction of social and human capital. We have community disruptions, labor shortages, impacts on essential services, increased vigilantism and social division. The key takeaways, widespread and long-lasting harm. Families are fractured, children traumatized, entire communities destabilized, local economies weakened. And the ripple effects extend far beyond just the undocumented immigrants. U.S. citizens, especially children, are directly harmed. Vulnerable groups are hit hardest, households with children, long-term residents. The overwhelming evidence shows that this mass deportation program imposes heavy, lasting social costs on families. It's got economic impacts as well. Workplace disruption, labor shortages, unfilled jobs, mass layoffs, increased costs for consumers and employees. There are rising costs in food and services because of these things. There are training and recruitment expenses. There's impact on tax revenue. Fewer people working, we're going to have less tax revenue coming in. You have impacts on local businesses losing the bulk of their employees, stores and restaurants, hair salons, and there's housing market disruptions. Housing projects are being curtailed because they don't have the workers anymore. Consumer demand shrinks with all of this. So fewer people earning, fewer people spending, fewer people buying. That's going to hurt our GDP. And the labor force, we have an aging labor force. Deportations are disproportionately targeting younger working adults. And that increases the dependency ratio, meaning that we have fewer young people working to help more retired folks. So the key takeaways here, mass deportations are imposing heavy costs on our economy. Consumers and businesses are both suffering, and the long-term risks outweigh the short-term political gains. You know, there's better ways to do this. We could uphold the rule of law and due process. We could protect our national security and public safety. We can support essential economic sectors. We can maintain humanitarian protections. We can modernize the immigration system. We need legal pathways to citizenship because we need these workers. We need these people who want to become Americans. They risk everything to come here. We have to find ways to accept them, not push them away. We have to have smarter border security and enforcement. Prioritize high-risk areas. Look for specific national security threats, for traffickers, for those who are violent criminals, instead of just keeping everybody out. We need investments in our ports of entry. We need to modernize our infrastructure, deploy advanced technology so that we can bring in legal crossings instead of just shutting them off completely. And we have to limit detention. We have to restore due process. We can't just throw people in concentration camps and keep them there for years. We have to honor our humanitarian responsibilities. We need to reopen our asylum channels. We need to clear our backlogs. We need real infrastructure that will help people who need help. I mean, you help people who need help, they will become dedicated citizens. They will become an asset to our country. We need to modernize our immigration system. We need to simplify our visa programs. I'm going through this really fast, but you will have these slides. You can read this stuff in depth. We need to have alternatives to mass deportation. We need to fund community integration so that people can really be brought into our communities. And we need to promote economic security so that these people who are willing to work will earn enough by working to support their families and have a reason to pay taxes. So there's a lot we can do. We will have an opportunity to do these things when we finally get rid of this administration. But we need to be thinking about those things, and we need to put together an agenda as part of our next campaign to right these wrongs and to deal with the mess we're going to be left behind. Let's look at a couple of real cases. Let's look at a couple of actual people. This lady is from the Hmong. They helped our U.S. forces in Vietnam. We brought these people to the U.S. after that war. We gave them permanent legal status. This lady was a child when she came here. She grew up here. She worked. She paid taxes. She raised a family. She lived for decades here. She did get caught up in a marijuana-related charge, and she had a short sentence. And after her sentence, she was transferred to ICE, and she was released. She was released with a removal order. Her lawyers said, these kinds of removal orders are never acted upon. You've been here forever. They're not going to bother you. Even though she's raised a family and been working, well, she was just deported to Laos. She's never been to Laos. She doesn't speak the language. She doesn't know anybody there. And her family is left behind now. Here's a fellow. This guy lives in Oregon. His neighborhood backed Trump. This fellow is a beloved fellow. He's lived with her for 31 years. He owns a vineyard management company. He employs 10 people. 2 of his children are citizens. He was a pillar of his church. He won wine industry awards, but he was detained for 5 weeks, and on Friday he was deported to Mexico. It's just a shock to their community. Everybody knows him. Everybody loves him. Their county commissioner said, we want a tighter border security, but we also want humane treatment for families. As a result of their arrest, their company, their citizens put up a billboard. We live here. We live together. Losing immigrants hurts us. The local newspaper wrote an editorial about this, that these kind of crackdowns are becoming a growing stain on our national heritage. Voters may have wanted tightening of the border and deportation of criminals, but not the arrest of a longtime neighbor. They wanted Trump to pursue gangsters, not destroy small businesses. Many people who sought some middle ground on immigration, and they felt they didn't get it from Biden, but they're not getting it from Trump either. Here's a U.S. Army veteran, a citizen. He was arrested during an immigration raid in Southern California. He was sprayed with tear gas, pepper spray, dragged from vehicles, pinned him down on the ground, and arrested him. He worked as a security guard at a farm. It was a marijuana farm, but still, it's a legal operation. He was arriving to work when several agents surrounded his car. He said, I'm a citizen, but they broke the window of the car, pepper sprayed him, and dragged him out of the car. He was taken to Metropolitan Detention Center in Los Angeles. He was put in a special cell on suicide watch, checked on every day. He became emotionally distraught. He missed his 3-year-old daughter's birthday. Federal agents never told him why he was arrested or allowed him to he was not allowed to contact a lawyer, was not allowed to contact his family. He was there for 3 days. They never let him shower. They never let him change clothes. He was covered in tear gas and pepper spray. His hands were burned. Sunday night, they had him sign a paper and they let him go. And he asked, why did you even arrest me? They said nothing. They gave him no explanation, nothing he could wrap his head around. He was locked up for 3 days, no reason and no charge. Here's a 17-year-old girl and her family. They were getting ready to head to a college scholarship event at her high school in southern central LA. They were running a little behind. His dad went out to get the car, but he never came back. They were trying to contact him on the phone, and finally he answered the phone and said he got picked up by ICE where I was going to get the car. He was detained by ICE agents. Um, the girl got her mother back in the house, so she might not get nabbed too. She ran back to where the dad was, and the immigration agents wouldn't let her speak to the dad. Um, they told her that they were taking to a detention center in L.A., but they're not giving you any information. You got to figure it out for yourself. ICE took 5 people on her block that day. Her neighbors ran inside their homes as soon as they realized what was happening. Afraid of going outside, they watched through the windows. People were being separated from their families. Sheila had trouble getting updates on her dad through ICE's online portal. She didn't have his IA number, alien registration number. She later learned that they'd even misspelled her name. Their attorney said that families often struggle to locate detainee relatives, navigate the complex system. Arrests and detentions are a priority. Upholding people's rights within that process have not been a priority. She was able to finally speak for her dad on Tuesday, 3 days after he was taken. He was being pressured to sign self-deportation papers. He thought about it, but he decided not to do it. She's also heard of more than 80 people being put in a room with only 2 restrooms available, not enough beds, not enough chairs, not enough food. Detention rooms being so hot that people are having to take their clothes off because it's so hot. Here's I think it's supposed to be 10-year-old or 16-year-old. There's a typo there. I don't remember her age. But she arrived in Mexico 7 months ago. She didn't know very much English. She got humanitarian parole as an unaccompanied minor. She was placed with family members who were already in the country, but she wasn't able to be legally presented by those family members. She got a letter. She got a letter that says, "You are here because we paroled you into the country. We are now terminating your parole. It is time for you to leave. If you do not leave immediately, you will be subject to law enforcement actions that result in your removal." They're sending letters. There's about 12 kids in Waukegan that got letters like this, even though they were paroled into the country. They're all unaccompanied minors. They've all been told they have to leave. These cases are becoming more common. Growing number of children now receiving letters from DHS ending their humanitarian parole. About a dozen of these children live in Waukegan. I said that these children are not criminals. They're not people Trump claimed that they would target. The ICE even said they're not going to target children, but here they are doing it. This is a Tufts University student. She was speaking out about the situation in Gaza. She was here on an F1 student visa. She was arrested by 6 masked plainclothesmen agents from the United States Department of Homeland Security following the revocation of her visa. They revoked her visa because they didn't like what she was saying. They claimed that what she's saying is a threat to our national security. There was widespread condemnation from elected officials and others. She was arrested on March 25th. On May 9th, she was released. But she spent a lot of time in prison. And what she saw in prison was just horrible. Temperatures in Louisiana were scorching, not allowed to have any time outside. Outside time was limited. And if you did go outside, you were on the sun, there was no shade. She had an asthma attack, and after that, they wouldn't let her go outside at all. And they said, you can't go outside because doing so is a risk to our officer safety. That doesn't make any sense. They would request medical assistance, and the request would go unanswered for weeks, sometimes even months. If they did get into the medical center, they would find themselves waiting there for hours, only be sent back for random reasons, including lack of translators. Medication lines outside were so long under the hot sun that many women just fainted. Many women said that their medical staff didn't believe they were sick. They shared how upon arrival they were in relatively good health, but their conditions deteriorated day by day due to inadequate access to medical care, nutritious food, sleep, sunlight, fresh air. They experienced loss of menstruation, declining mental health, even hair loss due to the overwhelming stress. Here's a fellow, Kenny, born in Florida. He was driving to work to a landscaping job. His mom was driving. There were 2 undocumented guys in the back seat. They were pulled over. She was pulled over. The local police called ICE. ICE dragged these people out of their cars, including him, and arrested him. There's a video of this. It's being pulled over and being dragged out of the cars. I've got the video here. I'm not going to take the time to run it. You'll get the slides. You can click on this link. You can run this video for yourself and see how ICE drags people out of their cars and arrests them. So I'm getting towards the end here. There's a lot for us to do. We need to get informed, dispel the myths, support humane policies, stand with effective communities, promote discourse and public engagement. Of course, vote and stay active, advocate for better solutions. Get informed, dispel the myths. You've seen some stuff here. Pass it around. When you get my slides, send them to the people you know that need to know the truth. Talk about it amongst your family and your friends and your church and your community, and support effective policy reforms. Contact your representatives. Advocate for balanced, evidence-based immigration policies. Prioritize due process, humane treatment. Encourage our lawmakers to restore and strengthen legal pathways for asylum, family reunification, economic immigration. We need these people. Urge officials to invest in modernizing our system. Don't kill an app that helps people, but build an app that helps people. We need more court capacity. We need more legal aid. We need more humane border management. Stand with the affected communities. Support your local organizations, your food banks, your legal and social, educational, humanitarian associations. Volunteer your time if you can. If you're retired, as many of us are, you have some time. You can donate some resources. You can participate in community programs, helping people. You can help them learn languages. We can support people facing these hardships. These people have risked everything to come here. We have to help them and promote civil discourse. We need to speak with each other respectfully about these things. We have to have open communication that's not yelling at one another, but is honestly talking about what's happening, about how it's hurting us all. We never should be saying, I told you so. We should be saying, look how bad this is. How can we work together to help the situation? Go to town halls, go to public forums, go to discussion groups. They're around here. Vote. We know, you got to vote. Got to vote for people that support the policies we care about and advocate for better solutions. Push for alternatives. Encourage investments. That's what I've got. Thank you for taking the time to hear all this. It was almost an hour of discussion. Let's have some discussion and questions.
Okay, are you ready, Ed?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, give me one moment. I found another question. And I am putting it where I can read it. So I will go back to the beginning because we do have a number of questions. Some may have been answered through your synopsis here, but Kathy had a question that said, can you talk more about how climate change increases immigration?
Well, I haven't researched that carefully for this,
Okay.
but it's pretty clear that climate change is impacting the areas closer to the equator. It's making their agricultural output less. It's causing a strain on resources like water, and there have been a lot of difficulties in those countries. Whatever democracy kind of governments are breaking down because of the stress they're undergoing. There's more and more gang-related activity. There's more and more turning to illegal means to make a living, since the legal means for making a living are breaking down. And there's real danger, especially to children who can get sucked into the gang cultures. And there's a lot of parents who not only feel that they can't make a living there anymore, but staying there is too dangerous, not just for them, but mostly for their children. I'd have to do quite a bit more research to put to say more than just this is the impression I have. But I pay attention to a lot of stuff, and a lot of impressions I have are pretty accurate. A lot of times when I'm getting a presentation together, I find good proof behind the kinds of impressions I have, and I'm sure there's good proof behind what I've just said, but I don't have it at hand.
Okay. I want to apologize in case I missed anybody's questions ahead of time. I tried to capture them all. I don't know if this is from Jason. It could be an in general for the chat, but it says, does anyone heard about the wireless system that is used by the law?
Wireless system used by the law. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. Let's see here. From Carrie. I thought when I was younger, if you married an American citizen, you automatically became a citizen. Was I wrong, or when did that change?
I don't think it was ever the case. If you marry an American citizen, you have some level of protection in terms of your ability to stay here, but you still have to go through the naturalization process. You still have to get a green card and do the studies and get vetted and get naturalized. So and it's easier if you're married to an American citizen, but you don't just become an American citizen the minute you marry an American citizen. That's never been the case.
Okay. Monica's question: how do undocumented people pay taxes, Social Security without a Social Security number?
They have a Social Security number. When we bring somebody in, and they've asked for asylum, and we agree you might have a reasonable case, we're going to let you come into the country while you wait for your case to be heard. When they do that, they give them a work permit. They give them a Social Security number, and they can go and get a job and present that Social Security number, and the E-Verify system will say, yes, that is a valid person, you can hire that person. And then they're paying taxes on that Social Security number.
Okay, Benita's question: why aren't the management of these facilities that are rated reprimanded for employing the undocumented?
I saw this today. Remember, I mentioned there was a meatpacking company that lost 70 employees, more than half of their workforce. Well, that company had checked every one of those people using the E-Verify system. And the federal government came back and said, every one of those Social Security numbers is valid Social Security number, and you can hire that person. Well, it turns out that a lot of those Social Security numbers were stolen from somebody else, were just made up. Somebody made up a number, and it happened to match some real person's number, and the E-Verify system didn't catch it, didn't figure out that this was a stolen or duplicate number. So the E-Verify system let the employer hire all these people, and the government comes back and says, yeah, it's not your fault. We know the E-Verify system isn't perfect, so we're not going to charge you with anything because you tried. But still, half your employees are gone, guy. Good luck. Isn't that special?
It is very. Becky's question: do you have any information on the citizens who owned property along the border that Trump militarized?
Not really, no. I mean, they probably still own the property. But Trump has declaimed a section of near the border as a military exercise area that where we can deploy troops. I'm sure that it impacts their ability to use that property, but I think most of that property wasn't really being farmed. So I don't expect that it's had a big impact on those folks, but I suppose they still own the property. This is an area where I didn't do any research. I'm just making up what I'm telling you right now. I do that all the time. You never know.
I won't tell nobody if you don't.
That's okay. I don't mind.
Okay. Okay, Julie's question: wasn't there a bottleneck for Biden due to COVID and people that were waiting in Mexico? Trump's deal with Mexico Then thousands were given TPS because of political or disaster events, Haiti, Venezuela, and question
Yeah.
mark.
Yes. There was a whole bunch of people, a couple of 100,000 that we brought in with temporary protected status. But some of those were a long time ago. I mean, some of those people have been here for 10 years. And there are some towns, there are rural towns where almost the entire workforce is temporary protected status people, and they've rejuvenated the town. I mean, all of a sudden they've got tons of workers, and they've got going businesses, and people are buying stuff and paying taxes, and there's kids in school, and the whole economy of the rural town improved because of all the temporary protected status people we brought in. And then Trump relieved them. Trump says, no, you don't have status anymore. And he's working on kicking all of them out. Yeah, so there was a whole bunch of people brought in on temporary protected status, but it wasn't just Biden. That was done even before Biden. That was done during the Obama period. That was even done during some of the Bush periods.
Okay. Constance has a question that says, do you know how many legal immigrants have been one deported, two incarcerated?
No, I didn't isolate those numbers. I don't think that there's many green card holders. I mean, but when you say legal immigrants, let me stress again, anybody that came in with an asylum claim is here legally. And a lot of those people are being swept up and kicked out. Now, if you want to talk about people that have gotten into the process to the point where they have a green card, not many of those people have been affected. You can talk about people that have already become citizens, have been naturalized. There's a couple of those who have been denaturalized. If you're a naturalized citizen, you commit a serious crime, or if they claim that you are a danger to national security, they can revoke your citizenship. There's a few of them. There's a small number of green card holders, but most of the people that are being affected haven't gotten that far into the system. They're here either totally undocumented or they're here on an asylum claim. And well, the people here on asylum claim are legally here, and yet they're being thrown out.
Okay, Mark's question is, didn't the Reagan admin stop prosecuting those who hired illegal immigrants?
Well, it's not just Reagan. We haven't done it for years. We've never really held business owners responsible. And everybody understands that these companies have to hire these people. They're not going to get food harvested any other way. So no, we've never prosecuted business owners for hiring these people because we know they have no choice. And in fact, up until now, we basically wanted them to hire them because we wanted the crops to be picked. And so it's pretty hypocritical in a way, but that's the reality of it.
Yvonne's question, given the number of people who have been captured coming from their legal immigration hearings, can't the courts change their protocols to allow virtual hearings?
Okay, there's courts and there's courts. When we think of courts, we think about the judiciary, the federal judiciary, the state judiciary, the kind of courts where you might go for a traffic ticket or you might sue somebody. Those are the judiciary part of our, we have three branches in our government. We have the legislature, we have the executive, and we have the judiciary. At the federal level, you've got Congress, you've got the president, you've got the federal judiciary. In each state, you've got the governor, you've got the state legislature, you've got the state judiciary. The courts that are hearing immigration cases are not that judiciary. There's a completely separate kind of immigration court that's not part of the judiciary. It's part of the administration. Trump runs the immigration courts, and Trump is telling the immigration courts, to just end all asylum claims and let ICE have the people. So, no, I mean, the immigration courts are going to do what Trump wants because they're part of the administration.
Sad. Julie's question is, also in Biden's defense, he asked for funding several times for border security and more judges for processing, and Congress refused to give him as much as was needed.
Absolutely true. And in fact, look, one of the things about Biden, he'd been in Congress forever. He knew how Congress worked. He was able to shepherd a lot of bills through Congress on a bipartisan basis that nobody was able to do before. And one of the bills he was working on was a bill to revise our immigration process, to fund more immigration courts, to make our immigration process work better. And this was a bill that he was probably going to be able to get through Congress, just like he got all those other bills through Congress, until the election started coming along. And Trump basically said to his GOP members, don't you dare vote for that bill. I don't want this problem solved by Biden. I want this problem to continue for Biden so I can beat him up with it during the election. So yeah, Biden made some progress. He would have made a lot more progress, except Trump deliberately told his congressional representatives to not let Biden make any progress in this area. That's 100% true. And
Okay.
you say in defense of Biden. To me, the only thing Biden did wrong is he didn't clamp down early enough. He loosened things up. Lots of people started coming in. It was making some problems for cities because they were busing migrants into New York and Chicago and the likes, and there was a lot of strain. I think Biden should have clamped down early. Biden did clamp down towards the end, but I think he should have clamped down a lot earlier than he did. That's the only fault I find with Biden in this area. I don't think we need to defend Biden much.
Okay, Ed, this is my inquiry because of that question. Was that that bipartisan bill by Lankford, the one that you're
I don't know.
referring to?
I don't know the name of the bill. I just know there was a bill. I know there was a bill that would have done a lot of good. And I know that Trump came out and basically said, I do not want to see this bill passed because I do not want to see Biden have a success in the immigration area. I would much rather he continue to be a problem so I can campaign on that problem in the election and beat him up with this immigration problem that we won't let him solve.
Okay, I believe it was. I'm just going to say from what I've looked into before. But Constance has a question that said, Trump got rid of many immigration judges. Why? And who did he replace them with? Trump-type judges in Stalin show trial style? Question mark.
Well, like I said, the immigration courts are not part of the judiciary. The immigration courts are something that Trump can run. And if he wants to get rid of judges that are inclined to grant amnesty requests and replace them with judges who will deny amnesty requests, he has every right to do that. We can't stop him from doing that.
Okay, Joseph's question. Why didn't the Dems get on TV every day and repeat these points you are making? I never hear them refuting the lies the R's tell.
Well, it's hard for me to say exactly why the Democratic leadership didn't do better with this. I think, and when I talk to Democratic leadership people, they basically are defensive. They say, well, we did everything we thought was right. We did the best we could, blah, 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 blah. And they have, kind of this way. Anybody's got an ego investment in what they did. And if you try and criticize what they did to get defensive about it, I think the issue here is not so much why they didn't do what I'm doing. I think the issue is let's think more about what to do now. Not what you can say what we did in the past was wrong, but right now we have to do some things running up to the midterm elections, basically. We have to do some things that will shift the balance of power here. Taking back the House will help. If we could get the Senate, that would be marvelous. I don't hold my breath, but that would be marvelous. So instead of talking about why they didn't do it, let's just push them really hard. And in fact, I think what we got to do basically is replace them. And there are candidates that will say these things. If you see them, vote for them. If you see anybody that you think ought to be running for office because they talk about these things, vote for them. Frankly, I think Pritzker should run for president because he talks about these things. I see him on Facebook talking about these kinds of things. But that's how it's going to work. As political candidates come forward in primaries, we need to see the ones that are talking like I am here, and vote for them and get them into office. And if the Democratic leadership, if the people in New York want Mamdani, and the Democratic leadership doesn't support him, well, then screw the Democratic leadership. Vote for him anyway and get him in there. So I can't make excuses for old Democratic leadership. I don't want to make excuses for them. I just want us to do the right thing going forward. And I want all of you, I want every one of you to repeat the kind of things I'm saying to everybody you can, so we get this message across.
Agree. Unity, not division, I say. But Carrie's question is pertaining to 911, and he says the 911 pilots were on tourist visas. No? Did they overstay them? One would not think flight lessons would take that long.
They probably didn't overstay them. I don't know. I didn't research that. But they were immigrants. They were the kind of immigrants that the right will say are a danger to us, and that if we let any of these people in, we have no idea who they are, and they might be doing similar things. So it's just something that they say. But I did not look specifically at those guys. It may very well be that they did not overstay a visa. However, they did, they did go into a flight school and say, I just want to learn to fly. I don't want to learn to take off. I don't want to learn to land. I just want to learn to fly. Why in the world didn't somebody call the FBI and say, what the heck?
We don't know. Okay. Lynn's question, are there any statistics on how our daily lives will be affected by the loss of these valuable workers? Any numbers on farm food losses, etc.?
Well, statistics are always after the fact. I mean, we expect rising prices from lower availability of goods. We expect rising prices from tariffs. We expect delays in construction projects. We expect a lot of stuff is going to happen, but we don't have any statistics because statistics measure what actually happened. And projections, I don't think numeric projections are very reliable. How much prices are going to rise? I don't know. I don't think anybody can reasonably predict that with any reliability. But the fact that they're going to happen, they're going to happen.
No doubt. Now Julie has a question which I don't know. It says, what is parole?
Okay. Parole, well, in this context, parole is what we say to somebody who's entered illegally, and they say, we feel persecution, we feel we'd be in danger back home, we're requesting asylum. Well, technically they've broken the law, and we can put them in jail while we wait for their asylum hearing to occur. But we don't want to keep them in jail forever. So we parole them. It's the same as in the real judicial system. When somebody has been incarcerated and we think they're okay to be out, we give them a parole. We say you can go back to work and back to your family. Your jail sentence isn't over, but you can be paroled for the remainder of your sentence unless you screw up. You screw up, you'll be right back in jail. You're out on parole. The same thing happens with the immigration courts. They say to the person, you're going to wait for your time in a immigration court. It might take a year or two. We don't really want to keep you in jail for a year or two, so we'll put you out on parole. Don't screw up or be back in jail. It's the same concept. And right now, we used to do that routinely, and we used to benefit greatly from that because all those people were working and paying taxes and filling jobs. And now Trump has said nobody's getting out on parole. They're all just going to be kept in the concentration camps until their court date comes up.
Okay, Carrie has another question. How much will farm wages have to increase to get Americans to do those jobs?
I don't care how much you increase those wages.
I don't think so.
They can't do it. They can't do it. They can't go out there in this field. Come on. It's 90 degrees out. They're not physically capable of doing it. I mean, if you didn't grow up doing this, if you didn't come from an area where this is how you live, if your body hasn't conditioned to do this work day in and day out, you can't go out there and do it. You'll die. American citizens cannot do this work, period. I don't care how much you pay them.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Amy has a question. Couldn't the decline actually be due to less staff at the border to apprehend migrants?
It could be, but it's not. No, it's not. There's plenty of staff at the border to apprehend people. No, it's a real decline. People are now scared to try and come.
Right, because the other part of that is she says they've been sent to other places to terrorize residents, e.g. California.
Yep, that's true. That's true. But there's still enough people at the border. No, it's not. The decline is not because we've deployed people elsewhere. The decline is because we've scared these people so much they don't even want to try and come anymore.
Okay, Judy has a question. Aren't we risking radicalizing an entire generation of young people by terrorizing these families and making their children fear and hate the USA? I can see these people going back to the horrible gangs or the gangs themselves in Mexico and Venezuela, etc., radicalizing more people to come after us in the future in retaliation.
Well, I imagine there's some possibility of that. That kind of leads back to what I said earlier about the mess we're going to face. I expect that after Trump leaves office, the Democrats are going to win the presidency and Congress. And we're going to be faced with possibly 3 million people in places like Alligator, Auschwitz, that we're going to have to do something with. We're going to have to try and make them whole somehow. We're going to have to try and make sure they don't become haters of America. It's going to be a tremendous mess. We're going to have to settle. There's going to be tons of lawsuits. We're going to have to settle them out of court. We're going to have to pay millions of dollars to make these people whole again. But if we make them whole again, if we do the right thing by them, most of them, I believe, will become citizens. They wanted to come to America and they need a safe place. If we can turn this country back into a safe place for them, as I hope we will, I think most of them will accept that and understand that this was an aberration in our nation. But yeah, there's a danger there, and if we don't handle it right, it's more likely that that'll happen. We're going to have to handle it right, and it's going to be very difficult.
Right. Julie has a question that says, do you have information On claim that Biden lost 350K underage kids after released to sponsors and claim that these kids were trafficked.
I haven't researched that specifically. No.
Okay.
I think that the claim that these kids were trafficked, I don't know what that means. These kids mostly came here. If they came as unaccompanied minors, they came here trying to hook up with other family members that are already here, and they were probably placed with or found their way to members already here. I mean, I don't see in our nation an enormous population of homeless kids wandering around our streets. I see children. There was an example I gave you today. Children that got here and got placed with relatives and are going to school and are being cared for in a family setting. So I don't believe there's any reason to fault Biden for allowing traffic kids to be trafficked into the country for some nefarious reason. I think that we brought kids in for humanitarian reasons, and they're probably, I can't prove this, but I believe they're probably being cared for as best as they can.
Constance question. Stephen Miller has invested heavily in prison construction. Isn't that illegal?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we have members of Congress, we have members in the administration who have all kinds of conflicts of interest. But I don't think there's a law against it, so I don't think it's illegal. I've spent a lot of time looking at these kinds of things in other parts of my work. And the bottom line is that corruption is legal in this country. It's legal for people to take certain kinds of bribes or to promise something and then get something in return. Maybe they push legislation that helps the company, and then when they get out of Congress, they get a high-paying job with the company. There's all kinds of stuff like that that's immoral, that damages our democracy. It's unethical. It's vast conflicts of interest, but it's not illegal because we don't have any laws against it. And we could have laws against it. And if you elect enough Democrats, we will have laws against it, but we don't have them now. The last time we tried to create laws like that, when the House was in Nancy Pelosi's hands, we passed twice a thing called the For the People Act that strengthened a lot of areas like this. And Mitch McConnell shot him down in the Senate, saying it's a power grab by the Democrats. We can't pass this kind of stuff until we get enough Democrats in the Senate to override a filibuster. So it's a challenge, but it is true that we need laws to make this kind of stuff illegal, because right now corruption is legal in the U.S.
Yeah. Mark's question. Are there still ads circulating in Central and South America which are recruiting immigrants?
I don't know. No idea. Sorry.
Next question. From Robert D. Boot Money. Question. Who actually benefits from deportations?
Well, I think the only people who really benefit from deportations are politicians who use the claims that illegals are a problem to gain power. I mean, this is typical of populist regimes. They find things or manufacture things that people care about. They pander to those emotions in order to gain political power. And they don't really do anything that helps our country or those citizens once they've gained that power. So I don't think that the deportations help anybody except the MAGA politicians.
Okay, now Carrie's question, will Elon Musk's promised robots help with farm work? I'm sure that was more of a jest, but
Well,
but
believe it or not, there is a little bit of automation going on in
yes.
farm work. And I imagine that over time, well, look, agricultural productivity has increased dramatically over the decades. Hey, look, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 95% of our population was working on farms. And now about 5% of them work on farms because we have provided so much automation and mechanization. And there is increased, I saw a machine that could pick certain crops effectively, raking through a field and picking up the crops properly. There's a little bit of that, but not enough to offset what we're losing right now. It's going to be decades before we actually have effective automation that can replace even a third of these people, I would bet.
Agree. Okay, Joseph has a question that says, why doesn't Trump resurrect the immigration bill he blocked in 2024 so he could get elected? It had bipartisan support, and that's probably, I'm going to say, the Langford bipartisan.
That's right. Look, Trump can't get elected again. He's termed out. And no matter what anybody says, he's not going to be on anybody's ballot, at least not in any blue state next time. But still, why doesn't he? The question is, why doesn't he really solve the problem? So this is something.
You don't want to.
No. This is something that is a real problem for populists. They create a problem and they get everybody on their side, all riled up about this problem, and then they can't fix it. All they can do is continue with what they were saying. I mean, it's the same thing with the Epstein files. What they did with the Epstein files is they said there's a whole bunch of people, mostly on the left, who are pedophiles. And it's all in the Epstein files. And if we get elected, we'll release the Epstein files and bring all these people to justice. And now that they're elected, it's like the dog that caught the car he was chasing. There's nothing they can do. They can't release the files because they know Trump's in them, but they can't satisfy their people any other way. So they're stuck. And they're stuck on immigration the same way. They promised they were going to get all these people out. So now they can't fix the problem. They have to follow through what they said, or they're going to lose all political support. And if they lose all political support completely, hey, then we could probably impeach Trump and get her removed. So he can't afford that.
Okay, Lynn's question, is there any way that we can stop the huge funding to ICE?
Nah, not until we get the House. Nope. We don't have a majority in the House or the Senate, and the GOP can do what they want in those areas. Once we get control of the House in 2026, we can stop further allocations like that. But we can't do anything about it now. The most we can do is through the courts. We can use the courts to stop things that violate our laws, that violate our Constitution. We can slow things down, but we can't change the funding. On the other hand, I don't know where they're going to find 25,000 more ICE agents. I mean, we're on full employment. Where are they going to find these people? I think, I can understand they can build more detention centers, but I can't understand where they're going to find another 25,000 ICE agents. Where are they going to get them?
We don't want to know. David Barker is asking, what is their end game? I don't understand why they want to reduce the population of the United States. This is our workforce that keeps us competitive with the rest of the world, and they are contributing to our economy. Why don't they want this?
They don't want this because they don't want to see this country become a true multiracial democracy. That's the whole bit here. The white Christian nationalists have been in charge of this country forever. And the way demographics are going, the white Christian nationalists are going to become a minority in this country in the next 20 years. And that scares the daylights out of them. And they will do anything, including overriding our Constitution, to stop it from happening. That is why they're kicking out immigrants.
Okay. Bruce's question, he said he came in late. He says, has anyone calculated on an ongoing basis an analysis of the economic impact on agriculture, construction, food services, hotel services, etc.? Is there any data on the impact of family-owned farms and small businesses?
No, it's too early. As I said earlier, this kind of data occurs after the damage has happened. Well, the damage is just now happening. We're not far enough along to have any numerical quantification of how much it's going to hurt us. In fact, projections about how much it's going to hurt us are generally unreliable anyway. Generally, the only real data you get is after the damage has been done. I mean, a lot of people are saying, hey, we haven't had much inflation yet. I mean, all Trump's tariffs and all his deportations. Where's all the inflation that the Democrats said are going to happen due to this? And my answer is, it hasn't happened yet, but it will. And I can't tell you how bad it's going to be until it happens. Once it happens, then we can tell you how bad it was. But no, we don't have any hard data yet because it's just not happening yet.
Okay. Cheryl asks, when did this become about detention?
I think Trump has always said that we're going to have a mass deportation, and he said we're going to have to build detention areas to hold these people. He said it all along, and in fact, Project 2025 describes it as well. So when did it become about detention? When Trump ran for his second term. And when he read Project 2025 and hired the people to implement it.
Okay, Lynn asks, isn't that why they are hanging on to people? Someone is making money.
Well, yeah, somebody's making money. Certainly, all this money that they allocated to build detention centers is going to make people who build detention centers rich, and the likes. Say, Bill, how much time do we have? It's after 8:45 now.
Yeah, it's 8:47, Bill, approximately.
Bill, you're on mute. Please unmute, Bill.
I set this up to go to 3 o'clock in the morning, if that's okay with you.
No sleep, no rest for the wicked, huh?
So in reality, I set this up to end at 8:30. So we are actually 18 minutes over. Debbie, how many more questions do you have there?
Oh my Lord, Bill, let me check and see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Let's go to 9 and cut it off at 9. Let's go to 9 and cut it off at 9.
It's up to you. You still have 130 people that are hanging with you.
Now
let's go to 9.
I have 12. That's not including if somebody has put a question in the chat since I've started reading the questions. So
let's at least go to 9. Keep going.
All righty. Hold on one moment, sir. Let me get back to my area here. Okay. Yvonne, okay. Yvonne has a question that has already been answered about the virtual hearings, so you have already answered that. Rick has a question. How might the Democrats mount an anti-immigration campaign to counteract the alt-right scapegoating of legal immigrants that are conducted in psychopathic and illegal ways?
Well, it's not just immigration policies. Those of us who are responsible citizens need to counter a lot of things that Trump is doing, not just his immigration actions, but his tariff actions, a lot of stuff. Indivisible is starting a campaign intended to to build public support for actions to oppose these policies. Bill, can you say a word or two about the Million Rising project and what that's all about? Because I think that that is the kind of thing we all need to get involved with.
Yeah, Indivisible created a 3-part session. The first part was about a week and a half ago on a Wednesday night. It's called Million Persons Rising. And the whole thing is to get people involved, people talking, people organized. The second one is going to be on the this coming Wednesday, 2 days from now at 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern. And then I believe it is August 13th that they have their third session. And each time they're asking for people to create activities uh, within their local areas to get people talking about becoming activists. They're trying to get to a magic number of 3.5% of the citizens, and they believe when they get to that number, they have the ability to win the next election, to overturn, in many ways, the current administration. But they're building to that point right now.
I just put a link in the chat to the Mobilize event for the next one. And earlier today, I listened to the video of the first one. You go to this link, and there's a video you can view of the first session. You can sign up for the second and third. We just have to get people in the streets. We have to get people out who will work to stop this madness, to work to not just give in and work to oppose what he's doing. And Indivisible is putting together what looks to me like a real opportunity to make progress in that area. So please click on the link I just put in the chat, get involved, come to Bill's Friday evening unhappy hour, where we'll be talking about this. Bill, put in a link for that so people will know how to get to that, because we'll be talking about that at his unhappy hour Fridays at 5, and we need to get people involved in opposing all aspects of the Trump regime, including the immigration aspects.
Okay. Next question from Bruce. With all the clearly illegal actions that are being taken, is anyone developing or filing class action suits to hold the administration accountable? Is there any discussion among Democrats regarding how to address the damages that this administration have created?
There's plenty. One example, the whole issue of birthright citizenship, where Trump believes that the Constitution doesn't mean what it says, that he can just end the practice of granting citizenship to people who are to children of non-citizens. A federal court granted a nationwide injunction against that. The Supreme Court came back and said, we're not going to allow one district judge to stop a policy nationwide. They can stop it in their district, but not nationwide. But then the Supreme Court also said, but there is an appropriate way for the legal system to stop something nationwide, and that is a class action suit. And immediately, that was put into effect by a couple of groups, and there is currently a certified class and a class action judgment, which effectively stops the government from enforcing their change to the birthright citizenship process. So yes, this stuff is being pursued in that manner. There are plenty of organizations that are filing suits. ACLU is one of the primary ones. supporting those organizations is an important thing to do. And if you need help finding an organization that you want to support financially, you let me know, and I will help you find the right ones. ed.spire@gmail.com.
Okay, Susan asks, are there any nonprofits who offer ICE workers money to change jobs? They can't torture people if they can't maintain a workforce/torture force.
I don't know if anybody is trying to do that. A lot of these people like what they're doing.
Yes.
If you listen to that video that I've had posted on one of those slides, you'll see that. So I don't think you can entice them away. I think that we just have to put pressure on them through legal channels. Here's something that I've thought about a lot. I've thought a lot about the idea that we have secret police who wear masks, nabbing people off the streets. And yet, you hear law enforcement agencies say, well, we have people who are nabbing people in drug gangs. And if the drug gang knows who nabbed you, they'll go and find your family and kill them. And that's probably true. The bottom line is, I don't so much blame the ICE agents for this. They're people who have their viewpoint. They think that what they're doing is the right thing to do. They enjoy doing it. The problem is not the ICE agents. The problem is the administration, which is enabling them and asking them to do this. So I don't blame the agents. I don't feel like we should require them to be unmasked. That just puts them in danger because they're being asked by Trump to do dangerous, illegal things. Trump is the problem, not the ICE agents, in my view.
Okay. Now, Susan's other question is, if you have the answer or not, how do we find out which of our neighbors or church mates work for ICE and encourage them to seek employment elsewhere?
Like I said,
Same.
I don't want to go there at all. I don't want to try and attack it that way. I don't think it'll work. I don't think it's fair. I think the problem is Stephen Miller and the Trump's enabling of Stephen Miller to make all this stuff happen. And I want to attack it that way. I think that's the right thing for us to do. I don't think it's right for us to expose or humiliate or put pressure on individual agents to not follow illegal orders or any of that stuff. I think that we have to attack this from the top, not from the bottom up, personally.
Thank you. Bruce's question, is there any way that the administration will be prosecuted for these inhumane actions?
I doubt it. I really doubt it. I think that who was prosecuted for separating children from their families in the first Trump administration? Nobody. I mean, to me, the solutions, and the founders thought it this way too, the solutions for these problems is political. Don't elect authoritarians. Don't elect Stephen Miller. I mean, we don't have to put Stephen Miller in jail. We just have to have him out of power.
Yes. Paul has a question, which I could possibly answer, but you can. Has NWSOFA created any Facebook, Instagram, or Blue Sky posts that amplify some of these points? All of us could proliferate such posts.
Well, I personally publish those kinds of things on my personal social media areas. I don't know that that NWSOFA does that kind of thing themselves. Bill, tell us about that.
Yeah, this last week, I think we did about 10 or 15, particularly on immigration, a combination. Half were brand new, coming out of the Truth Brigade, Illinois sandwich shop on Friday at noon. We amplified those, the new ones, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and on X. And then we noticed a number that were out there on Blue Sky from Indivisible, and we amplified at least 15 or 20 of those. And we continually to ask all of our leadership to go up to our website where we have all of our Blue Skies and just amplify those.
Next.
Okay. Okay. Rosemary has a question. What about the stunt of bringing in white South African immigrants? Doesn't that document the racism behind the whole immigration effort?
Well, it does, but it's a minor thing compared to what we're talking about today. Sure, it just shows the hypocrisy. It shows the foundation of what I said about why this is happening, and it's part of not wanting the white Christian nationalists to become a minority. But I want to focus on big problems that are affecting our people, are affecting our economy, affecting our society, and bringing a few white Christians from South Africa is as you say, it's a stunt. It's not something I want to pay a lot. I don't want to pay a lot of attention to that. I'd rather just ignore it.
Okay.
Hey guys, it's 9 o'clock.
Yes, it is.
Well, I can hang in here a little longer.
Okay.
I mean, you still, as you say, we still have 100 people on the call. Let's go until we don't have any more questions. I'm willing to go further.
I have 3 more questions. The last one is timed 8:07, so I don't know if any have come in after that, but we can at least do these last 3 that I have. Susan is inquiring, are there any nonprofits that help deported people return to the U.S. and help fund their U.S. families' needs in the meantime? How can we donate?
I don't know the answer to that, but I will be happy to look and provide some information along those lines. So anybody that is curious about that particular topic, you send me a note, ed.spire@gmail.com, and I will research that and help you find those areas. We do need to be supportive of these folks, and if you need help finding these kind of folks, I'm glad to help you find them.
Okay, thank you. Mark's question, is there an organization that is taking names of those who are perpetrating this horror?
Well, I mean, we know the names. As I said, the important names are the political leadership. We know who they are. And we don't have to take names of ICE agents. I don't want to take names of ICE agents or any of that kind of stuff. I just want to take we know the names of the political leadership that's causing this to happen, and we need to get them out of power.
Okay, and the last one is from Susan. How do we talk with ICE workers, not just our senators? They need neighbors telling them day after day how traumatizing it is. They are being inoculated. Nope, no way to do it, huh?
Nope. Don't try and do that. They're following orders.
Yep. Go to the top.
This has got to be done top down, not bottom up. You're not going to get ICE agents to decide they should quit because these guys are earning money that they take home to their families too. They have a job. They want to do their job. They want to get paid. They think they're doing the right thing for the country. Don't talk to them. You talk to people who will become political supporters of ours. Talk to people who have concerns. Talk to people who aren't sure. Don't talk to people who bought into this hook, line, and sinker. We need to get people together who will act, who will put pressure on the political leadership. And the way to solve this is through the political leadership, not through some bottom-up discussion with ICE workers. That's not going to go anywhere.
Okay, now Ed, just to let you know, Garrick Balk had sent me a message that asked if we could address his question, and he sent me the message around 8:56. So I'm trying to look for his question. Garrick, if you're still on.
Jim, do you have any other questions you want us to address?
Yeah, Ed,
somebody-
I wondered if the people that have been illegally deported after we changed the administration, is there any restriction from them coming back asking for asylum?
Well, right now, no asylum claims are being accepted, period. We discussed that. And you know, in many cases, it's improper to say that we have people who've been illegally deported. Most of the people who have been deported are being legally deported. I mean, they legally dismiss their asylum claim. Once their asylum claim is dismissed, now you can say it's illegal because there's insufficient due process. There's insufficient opportunity to raise a claim. But strictly speaking, if you've got a deportation order, them deporting you is not illegal. Yeah, there have been some illegal activities. There have been some cases where there have been court orders to protect people, and they've been deported anyway. Those are illegal deportations, but I think those are the vast minority. I think most of the deportations are going on are technically legal. Even I think the only real claim we have about them being illegal is that they're not allowing due process.
Yeah.
But you know, they can fast track things, especially when they're using the Alien Enemies Act. When they're using the Alien Enemies Act to say that someone is a danger to the country, they have the right to kick them out immediately. There's no due process for actions taken under that law. So, and in terms of return, I think that return is not going to be an option until we get the control of this government back.
Right.
When we get control of this government back and we try and make things right for people, one of the things we have to try and make right is that people that were pushed out, that shouldn't have been pushed out, we got to find a way to let them come back if they're willing to do so.
Thanks, Ed.
Did you find that fellow?
I have not found it yet. So Garrick, if you could please put your question in the chat again, please.
Or raise your hand. Is there
Or
anybody else?
raise your hand.
Anybody else wants to ask a question? Raise your hand. We'll take a couple more.
Please, Garrick, raise your hand. Please.
Still got 84 folks on the call.
Yeah, Garrick is still on.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you
you
all
go.
for hanging in here. There he is. Hey, Garrett, go ahead and unmute. What's on your mind?
I'm trying to locate my question in the chat, but there's so much chat. I'll just try to
Well.
remember exactly what I said or asked. My question primarily was, is there anything that is vetting these unmasked ICE officers from picking up these immigrants? And are they oath keepers? Are they Proud Boys? Are they, pardoned insurrectionists? Who are these people?
Okay. For the most part, they are. I have no evidence that these people are ex-convicts or Proud Boys or any of that. They're ICE agents. They're FBI, not FBI. They're Border Patrol agents. They're ICE agents. There are other parts of the government that have been deputized to help with this effort. I don't have any reason to believe that they are recently recruited Proud Boys or anything like that. But there are people that have it's been their job to try and stop illegal entry and to try and get rid of undocumented people, and they have been told specifically to go get everybody you can. We want to do a couple of thousand a day, and I want you to go find everybody you can. And some of them are very happy to do that because they feel like these people have snuck in, they've gotten through border protection, and they want to go get them. So
Okay.
and you know, it's kind of easy for some of these guys to take things too far. You watch that video I put in that one slide, and you'll see some law enforcement people get really rough with people.
And that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
And
well,
Ed,
I don't think they're recently recruited Proud Boys or anything like that, but they are the extreme right wing of our population. I mean, those are the kind of people that go into this work, right?
So
Okay,
why
thanks,
are they
Garrett.
doing their operations unmasked and unbadged?
Okay, they're not doing them unmasked. They're doing them masked because they know that in some cases they're dealing with people who will go find their families and kill their kids. I don't blame them for that. And they're not doing them unbadged, but just because there's a badge with a number on it doesn't mean that you get the opportunity to write that down or take a picture of it or anything. There really is no recourse we have about this except to get the people out of power that are directing it. That's really what we can get the courts to declare some things illegal. Like the one district in California has declared that you may not racially profile people to stop them and ask them for their papers. So there's some things we can do in the courts, but for the biggest thing we have to do is get Stephen Miller and Trump out of power and stop this. Thanks, Garrett. Bruce
Thank
Harris,
you,
please
Ed.
unmute. Bruce Harris, please
Okay.
unmute and
Go ahead,
see what you
Bruce.
got.
Sure, thank you. Abrego Garcia, Supreme Court held 9-0. He was entitled to due process. And
Right.
yet the administration is deporting so many of these people without any due process hearings. How are they getting away with it? And are there any pending lawsuits over that?
There's tons of lawsuits over it, and the court and the administration is sandbagging and slow walking and outright defying, and it's hard to do anything about it because the court doesn't have a police force that can go arrest Stephen Miller. I mean, in the final analysis, the courts can slow this stuff down. The courts can help, but the real solution here is a political solution. And that's what we have to work for.
And they said that he was entitled to due process, and yet those people that were sent to South Sudan, they weren't entitled, according to the Supreme Court, for a hearing as to why they would fear going to South Sudan. I don't see how the court's being consistent there.
I agree with you, and you'll find that lower bench judges and appellate judges are more inclined to slow Trump down. But when it gets up to SCOTUS, the extreme right wing group he's packed into SCOTUS will occasionally, more than occasionally, I wouldn't say half the time, but maybe a third of the time, will side with the administration anyway.
They've sided with the administration 16 of 18 times.
Yeah, exactly. But there's more than half. There's 75% of the cases that happen at the lower courts level and the appellate court level are being lost by the Trump administration. So the courts are doing a lot to slow them down. But it is true that there are inconsistencies, and it is true that SCOTUS is kind of weighing in with on Trump's side more than the lower courts are. Thank you, Bruce, for bringing that up.
Mostly on the emergency docket where there's no briefing, no argument, and
absolutely,
they issue no reason for their opinions.
Yes, it's a real problem, Bruce. Thank you very much. Let's go to Beatrice and wrap this up.
Right. Okay,
Beatrice, you're going to be our last question.
Okay. My fear, since I see all as you stated about racism and the nationalists, right wing, etc., and then there is a progression of I see and read that we start with the immigrants, the least, the low fruit, and then we continue to progress, and then additional people of color, since the law doesn't seem to be keeping him from doing things that are totally illegal. What's to stop? I mean, he's doing a lot to hurt African American people right now, trying to erase their culture, of course, eliminate diversity, which, of course, not just hurt us, but hurt whites as well, but
It hurts the whole nation.
it hurts human society, right?
Right,
But
right.
we seem to be the target, and it feels like they want to take us back to this period of slavery.
Yeah, I agree with you. The leading edge is the immigrants, which are primarily Latino, but the whole DEI stuff shows that he's going after all minorities, blacks, all people of color, any people of color, even Asians. So it is a slippery slope. We have to defend. And as I said, and I've said this in other presentations, our democracy, our republic is under attack by these people, white Christian nationalists. And it's a challenging time because over the next 20 years, demographics are going to move this nation to where the white Christians are a minority. And there's only one of two things are going to happen. Either we're going to become a truly multinational democracy, the first one in the world, because every other nation still has their predominant racial group. The Germans are mostly German, and the Irish are mostly Irish, and all that. This is a country built by immigration, and our demographics have constantly been shifting, and they will continue to shift to where we become the first truly multinational democracy. Either that's going to happen, or we won't be a democracy anymore. One of those two things are going to happen. We all have to work together to make sure it's the first one and not the second one. So click that link I put in there and join the Indivisible effort to get millions of people to understand what we're facing and get out into the streets and stop this nonsense. Thanks to all of you for hanging in here. Thank you for all your great questions. Thank you for the privilege of addressing you.
All right, and that concludes this evening's presentation. Wonderful job, Ed, and thank you for those of you who hung in there. But just a note, at the NWSOFA.org website, we have the live streaming YouTube. There are 15 people who have already started looking at the presentation for tonight. You can look at it 24/7 at any time that you want. And there is another dozen from the last couple of weeks. Tomorrow night, we do have SOS, which is sharing our stories at 7 o'clock, same channel as tonight. And then on Thursday night, we have our vision forward, coming up with our messaging for the future for the Democrats. So everybody, thank you so much. Ed, thank you. What a job. Talk to you all later.